While Newcastle missed out on the country title by a single point last time around, it faces a very different tournament this year in more ways than one. Teams not only play a preliminary match before Country Week, which better spreads the workload, there'll also be two Newcastle sides campaigning.
Newcastle were invited to put in a second team. It's probably easier for us to get a second team together, and for the geographics of it all, and it's a good opportunity for a lot of the younger guys.
But the second squad will feature some more experienced heads, like the Wanderers' Julian Morton. He'll captain the side to be called the Wildfires, while the Newcastle team itself boasts a new leader in Darren Dimmick, who only took the helm at Maitland this season.
He's a guy that can handle it. He's a very experienced player, and we're all very confident that he'll do the job well.
Newcastle also boasts new brawn in the form of Eastwood's Mark O'Brien, while the majority of players from last year's loss to Central North are backing up, something that'll be an advantage against the tournament favourites.
The boys are very keen to make amends, and we're keen for another showdown.
The road to the June long weekend finals on the Central Coast begins for the Wildfires this Saturday when they take on New England in Armidale. Newcastle host North Coast the following Sunday. In a career already full of highlights, Matthew Gidley last night added another to the list. Called in at the 11th hour, the Newcastle centre not only scored the first try, but performed right across the park.
To have it all compacted into one day, just from going from one extreme to the other really, and I never thought I'd be sitting in the shed with the New South Wales team celebrating a win when I woke up yesterday.
As for any indication he'll return for Game 2...
That wasn't really spoken about last night. We just enjoyed the moment last night after a good win. And, whatever happens Sunday afternoon, it's up to the selectors then.
Gidley, though, isn't the only one likely to appear again. Test hooker Danny Badiris shone in his first Blues call-up. Tamana Tahu scored a try on debut. And second rowers Steve Simpson and Ben Kennedy were also instrumental in tearing the Maroons apart. All 6 Knights players also appear to have made it through the match unscathed, with John's injury scare later revealed to be only calf cramp. South Sydney on Sunday afternoon, now their next target.
We pride ourselves on the Knights on not trying to lose 2 in a row, and especially not losing at home, so it's an important match for us, and I know the boys will be fired up.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
NBN News visited the Newcastle Stock Exchange in December 2000 when it traded its first shares. 2 companies were listed then, and almost 18 months later, those same 2 companies remain the only listings. The NSX says the failure to attract new business can be put down to a lack of marketing.
Our marketing's been going for the last 6 months only, really. That's when the corporate advisors and the rest of the investing community has really become aware of us. The first 2 listings gave us the ability to really shake down our systems, make sure everything's working. Everything is in place now.
The NSX hosted an expo today designed to bring fledgling companies together with wealthy investors in the hope that those companies will go on to list with the exchange. It needs 30 new listings a year for several years to break even and has enough funding to survive for another 2 to 3 years of running in the red. But the brains behind the operation are optimistic.
My full-time job really is to make sure it exists, and I'd like to see it here in 10 years' time. It has all the hallmarks of being a long-term company.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Overall, we're trying to combat the problem of illiteracy, so if children are read to from a very young age, that will really go a long way.
In a match where mistakes were almost as high as the score, the Terrace kept its home reputation intact. Putting the pressure on early, Brendan Granger had a chance to cross, instead taking a look and forcing a changeover. Magpie defence rattled the visitors, a knock-on giving the home side another go at putting the pressure on, only to add to the stats. Curry came alive in the 9th, but good lead-up play went unnoticed, Les Smith intercepting the ball, and an early 4 points. Following an unsuccessful conversion, Joel Osborne saw a gap shortly after the restart, but was run down by desperate Curry defence 10 metres out. The Magpies continued to swoop on an often loose ball, giving James Batty room to move, an individual try putting the Terrace ahead another 4. Matt Coombe continued a night with the boot he'd rather forget, but soon after the Terrace sent Joel Osborne over from set play, well on the way to a 34-12 full-time score. With 3 games left in round 7, 3 teams share the top of the table. The Northern Blues and Cessnock are second on 8 points, while Maitland sits alone in the cellar. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Since the demise of the Falcons, there have been elements at work within Newcastle to get a national team based here once again. While the push for a men's side has stalled, the effort in getting a women's team has only grown.
I think women's sport in particular is becoming increasingly affordable for major competition, and I think we're looking at that as something as a stepping stone.
Having hosted several WNBL matches in recent seasons, the Opals World Challenge is an amazing coup for the city, which will host a leg of the major international tournament in early September. Besides Australia, the US, Brazil and France will all be on show.
We're going to see from the Brazilians and the French and the Americans a number of ladies that are playing in the National League in the United States.
Australia will play America in the Newcastle leg, while France will take on Brazil. Crowd numbers, though, will also act as a barometer of public support for the code.
If we see a great success from that tournament, I certainly think that'll be a catalyst for a women's team in the area.
All the signs look positive at the Garden Sports Club. This is what the venue is expected to look like when completed.
It'll be one of the most exciting developments you've seen in this area, and it will rival anything within the world.
But the $1.5 million required from the Greyhound Racing Authority to go ahead with the development can only come after a positive feasibility study. The report into the costs and benefits of such a development will be tabled by the end of the month.
Nothing that we've struck so far that's caused a barrier, I guess, to moving forward, but yes, we'll have to wait and see.
A meeting today involving Newcastle Council, the GRA and NCA officials, along with the Racing Minister, was also fruitful, with September pencilled in for the start of construction at the site. Meanwhile, Minister Face will meet with jockeys next week after concerns many country hoops won't be able to afford an expected increase to insurance premiums come July.
So they don't have any magic answer for it, but we've got to try to work our way through it. So I've undertaken to meet them next Thursday. We'll sit down as long as we can to try to overcome their problems if that can be achieved.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Transform Composites has certainly put its money where its mouth is. Recently spending $100,000 in a tendering process, the Broadmeadow-based company has been awarded a $9 million contract by manufacturing giant Bombardier to fit out 29 rail carriages for the Victorian government. Virtually everything a passenger sees and touches on a train is included, from the nose cone right down to the seats. Competing against markets with low overheads, Transform Composites not only manufactures its product, but designs it from scratch, using a team of 16 engineers to cut out the middleman.
A lot of the Asian countries that supply into Australia got very low labour rates, and the only way we can really beat them is by coming up with smarter designs and using smarter material solutions.
Another Hunter company to gain international recognition is the Tomago-based Amp Control. Manufacturing underground power substations, Amp Control enjoys an 80% share in the domestic coal market. A recent export push into China resulted in the supply of this substation, and following its shipment next week is another $1.8 million in orders, along with potential to break into the US market.
The funding for this particular project is coming from the United States. We're working closely with the American partners, and hopefully that will also gain our credibility for that particular market.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
It's a long way from the hospital ward, but that's where Mark Hughes almost ended up when appendicitis-like symptoms struck him down midweek. He almost had surgery, but patience proved the best cure, with rest and medication turning things around. So much so, he trained today and was past fit to play on Sunday.
I'm convinced that, whilst I'm not 100% today, I'm feeling better, and by the weekend I should be pretty good.
His inclusion will lift an average age of the depleted side, a point not missed on the former Blues fullback.
Yeah, there's some young blokes on there. Actually, on the bus on the way down, we might have to put some cartoons on for them, but we normally watch videos.
The team won't get to see Matt Parsons and Josh Perry reunite, with Parsons unable to overcome a shoulder injury. Already pencilled in for an ankle reconstruction at the end of the season, the country prop is rated only a 50-50 chance of returning the following weekend. Clinton O'Brien will now start, while Jared O'Doherty pushes onto the bench. The effect of yesterday's announcement to sack Tigers coach Terry Lamb remains to be seen, but does add an already interesting mix in the lead-up to Sunday's match.
They're going to be desperate on a couple of counts, not least of which they haven't won a game for 6 weeks. They went within a whisker of winning last week, and they came off a disappointing performance against Brisbane in a similar circumstance.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. Whether playing at home or away, Hamilton's Evis Heath always has a nose for goal. Peter Wood, though, just too good. Josh Maguire came close as well, while Trent Austin beat everyone except the woodwork. The whole first half was one of missed opportunities, with Olympic failing to take a number of chances that fell its way. Andrew Zane wasn't in the good books either, carded before the break. Not long after half-time, Olympic's Aaron Thompson saw red. Sent from the field for a handball when a Highfield goal looked certain. Tony Majerowski made sure of it with a shot from the spot. That was just the start to an incident-packed second half. Despite being a man down, Olympics still found room, and when an apparent foul was actually overruled, the advantage fell perfectly for Trent Austin, who made sure Hamilton didn't waste another opportunity. His celebrations almost as good as the goal. John Bennis, oh so close with a potential match winner soon after. That was the fall for Azzurri, with a last-minute charge finished by Majerowski's second goal. It wasn't clear where the big striker was heading after, but the 2-1 win keeps his side in second spot.
Now we just have to try and get the children there, and financially and physically. So if there's any companies or anyone that's willing to give them some financial support, it would be great.
There's plenty of reasons to be celebrating at McGuigan Estate after it signed off on a deal to merge with South Australian-based Simeon Wines.
What it does is to expand our company from where we were and virtually double our size.
But while the company's administration office will move to South Australia, Brian McGuigan says he's committed to the Hunter Valley.
It's only expansion of a Hunter Valley-based company to be more impactful right across the spectrum of marketing right around the world.
He's now pushing ahead for a $6 million expansion of his Becolban winery, designed to modernise winemaking and retail facilities and also include a food hall featuring the finest cuisine the Hunter has to offer.
We're going to concentrate on local produce, local olive oil, local condiments, all sorts of local food, local cheese.
And across the road, a new winery for the Tempest 2 label is also taking shape. The exclusive drop is the work of daughter Lisa McGuigan. The $10 million development, now under construction, will feature an amphitheatre big enough to entertain crowds of 8,500. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
In one corner this weekend will be Newcastle University student Jeremy McHugh up against Robert Gundry for the first Newcastle bout of Muay Thai. Differing to other forms of boxing, Muay Thai is fought over 3 2-minute rounds and allows fighters to use their elbows, knees and swinging back fists, all combining for what's been described as a spectacular form of boxing. To be sanctioned in Australia, competitors must wear elbow, rib and shin protectors. But talking to Jeremy, you can't help but wonder if it was ever meant to be this serious.
Well, originally I'm going to do it for self-defence, and also it's pretty good fitness. You get pretty fit doing it. So yeah, that's what started me off.
On Saturday night, McHugh will take a break from his engineering studies and put 3 months of constant training to the test. And as confident as he is, there's still room for the butterflies to move.
I'm excited for it. I'm starting to get a bit nervous, but should be a good night.
Stephen Amount, NBN News. At the centre of the Tilligary Peninsula is Tanilba Bay and Malabula. The two towns seem peaceful enough through the day, but face the same issues as many small towns by night. 1 policeman and a handful of problem youth. 2 weeks ago, the trouble went too far when the Tanilba Bay Public School lost 2 classrooms to arson. A resident of 32 years, Doreen Bradley was joined by around 70 people overnight at a public meeting to work out a solution. She says the vandalism is the worst it's ever been, and the area 1 policeman is asked to patrol is simply too great.
If 1 policeman has got the area to do, well, he can be one area and they're in another area. And they seem to congregate where they know that it's dark and where you can't sort of get to them. That's the point.
Some communities facing the same issues have gone as far as employing private security. But Tanilba Bay residents don't see why they should have to. Instead, they're calling for the Port Stephens Council to use existing resources.
We're asking the council, instead of their rangers working of a daytime, that they perhaps work night shifts, only of a weekend. I mean, Raymond Terrace, Madawi, we're all having problems and they could cover those areas.
The idea will be presented at the council's next meeting. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Back in 1998, Heath Francis contested his first World Championships in England as a rank outsider. This time, Paralympic gold will see him start across the channel as one of the favourites.
I suppose everyone's out gunning for me a bit more now and they know who I am, so can't really shock them and sneak through to the final really, but I'm really looking forward to it. I know I'm in really good form, so it should be great, yeah.
But things haven't always been so rosy since the Paralympics, where Heath claimed top honours in the 400, 200 and 4x400. A 5-month break to recover from stress fractures to his feet forced the Burrell boy to re-evaluate his athletic career.
I realised that I had the most amazing time at the Paralympics, and if I can have an experience even half as good as that in the following either World Championships or next Paralympic Games, then it'll definitely be worth it.
And that's already proving true, with the 20-year-old having both thoroughly enjoyed himself and shown good speed in the recent Telstra A Series.
It was great competition that we had at the A Series, and then to sort of push back off that and go overseas, it's going to be really good.
Heath leaves for a training camp in Germany on Sunday before contesting the Worlds later this month. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The Bay literally charged into battle against the ladder leaders, but New Zealand referee Eugene Skerritt made sure things didn't get out of hand. After missing one shot, Dave Sadler booted the first points for the match with his second. Hamilton, though, was on the hunt for tries, and Taylor Philippou looked to have landed the home team's first. But the Kiwi whistleblower got it right, calling things back. The pre-match focus was on the fight up front, with both packs keen to settle a few scores. The Hawks soon had the edge in that battle, and it showed on the board, with Dan Schaefer powering across. Trent Slater booted the lead to 7. Before that buffer was doubled after Tom Bluegum laid one on for Dave Pitfield. The Bay tried to keep in touch, but Hamilton was full of running, especially its number 8. Schaefer again causing headaches for the Bay, racing away to give his team a 24-6 half-time lead. After dominating up the middle, Hamilton began to rule out wide after the break, running in a number of tries to only extend its match-winning lead. The Bay grabbing a consolation 5-pointer, but it was the Hawks' day, winning by 44 points to remain on top of the ladder.
The tartan pipes and drums converged on the town on Saturday for the annual Highland Games. In a fitting touch to this year's event, held in blustery conditions, Scone Mayor Barry Rose was presented with a Scottish rug to signify the close relationship between our Aberdeen and the Aberdeen in Scotland. The Highland Games featured some fancy footwork from Celtic dancers and the testosterone of a strongman competition.
Fine weather provided the perfect excuse to get out to Cessnock for one of country racing's biggest days of the year. 7,500 people made the pilgrimage to the Jungle Juice Cup, many dressed for the occasion, although the ladies' best efforts in the Hat Stakes were surpassed by the opposite gender. The wildlife influence quickly spreading elsewhere.
You guys were obviously inspired by the crocodile hunter, I'm assuming?
Bloody oath, go Steve.
In fact, with the Jungle Juice flowing, it seems celebrities were everywhere. Even the jockeys weren't prepared to miss the party.
Tell me you had a pretty good run in the last.
Yeah, mate, yeah, I done well, a bit of push and shove, a little bit of elbow, but I got home in the end,
For the main race, though, at least one expert liked the look of a more established rider, a certain Alan Robinson on Incident.
Yeah, if it wins, you won't shut him up, there's no doubt about that. Robbo does know how to celebrate, whether it be at Cessnock, Randwick or wherever. But I hope he can, talk it into winning.
Inevitably, all eyes that could still focus were on the feature, the Jungle Juice Cup itself, over 1,350 metres. And Max and Me paid handsomely for the believers, with 9 and 6 the other numbers you needed to net a very handy trifecta. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The New South Wales Chamber of Commerce and NRMA Regional Business Survey found that 51% of businesses were directly affected by crime in the last 12 months, One person not surprised by the figures is the Hunter Business Chamber's Paul Murphy. He says crimes like graffiti and window breaking, right through to more serious armed hold-ups, have an impact. He believes an increased police presence on the streets is one of the answers to arrest the problem.
If a business reports a crime, they like to get an answer to it quickly, and we don't feel that the police crime line has been efficient and effective, and nor has the response time for police been efficient and effective.
But the survey also found that more and more businesses aren't reporting the crimes to police. That's something John Reid hopes changes. His Newcastle office furniture shop has been repeatedly vandalised, mainly broken front windows, with the cost of replacing them putting a massive strain on the day-to-day operations. But he says it's now time for those affected by crime to simply not cover the costs without informing police.
I implore upon all the business owners in the area to fill in an incident report, to ring up and report it. Make sure that it does go in. It helps everybody, and it helps try and minimise some of that antisocial behaviour.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Godfrey Tanner was always there, whether it was up in the bar or on University Council, battling it out for his constituents.
The site of the 16-seat Twin Otter won't only be limited to Belmont Airport anymore. Aero Pelican has announced it will start up a 20-flight-a-week Sydney service from Williamtown next week.
I think Aero Pelican has always been a local Newcastle icon, and I believe that the expansion of it will receive community support. I think the lower cost structure and obviously the saving for the passengers itself will certainly offer a more attractive service.
Aero Pelican management says it will be offering cheap one-way flights from Williamtown with the goal to undercut competitor Qantas by up to $17. Also announced is the use of discount seats to lure back passengers, although the number of those seats on a flight is still unknown. But could the decision to fly from Williamtown be the death knell for Belmont Airport? According to Gareth Brown, that answer is no, and in fact the company expects to add services to the airport if passenger numbers continue to pick up.
Our intentions with Belmont is to continue at Belmont for an indefinite period. There's certainly no decision there at all, nor are we considering, and nor do we believe we will be considering any changes to the Belmont destination.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
It would have been hard to book a spare sporting venue across Newcastle this afternoon, with dozens of Eastern Games finals being fought out. Tennis was the game at District Park, of course, with Wollongong defeating Macquarie University in the men's, while Western Sydney beat Wollongong to advance to the women's decider, which they lost to Newcastle despite the best efforts of their mascot. No prizes then for guessing who the locals played in the men's rugby final. Up 10-5 at the half, Newcastle missed two chances to increase the margin in the second, but still survived a late charge from the Hawkesbury campus to take the win. The women earlier not so lucky against Bathurst. The first half of the men's soccer final was one of missed opportunities for the hosts. Newcastle had several shots on the University of New South Wales goal without success, while the second was the complete opposite, the home side winning 5-0. Wollongong walloped Macquarie in the women's. Newcastle found plenty of success elsewhere, winning the men's basketball and baseball and the women's badminton. 6 out of the 10 medals went the host's way in the archery, while the University of New South Wales was also well represented, winning the men's touch football and who could forget ultimate frisbee, but the ultimate prize fell to the hosts. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Playing away, North quickly made themselves at home, Dean Ball making the most of a short corner. 10 minutes later, it was Paul Kirkwood who slipped one through the Gosford defence for the first of his 3. Down 3-0 at the break, Gosford returned fire, Kevin Bloomfield finding the home side's first. Then Gavin Drennan hit the back of the net. But North were just too good, winning by 6. Souths still well in front on the ladder, but the battle for 3rd and 4th is hotting up. Gosford remains in the competition cellar. Some great results from Newcastle's Eliza Stankovic at the German Disabled Championship. The wheelchair sprinter took gold in the 200 metres, silver in the 400 and bronze in the 800. It's a great boost just days before the World Disabled Games, and she'll also compete at the Commonwealth Games later this month. And in Black Diamond AFL, the Cardiff Hawks suffered a huge upset at the hands of Nelson Bay. Other results not so surprising, just big.
just because it's got an Italian element to it, you just watch it and it's funny and you follow it. It's great.
It has been a landmark beside the New England Highway for almost 4 years, a symbol of the fight by 115 Hunter Valley No. 1 mine workers sacked in 1998 to overturn what they claimed was their unfair dismissal by Rio Tinto subsidiary Coal and Allied. Today, the site was cleared. The removal part of the recent industrial court settlement between the men's union and the company not to continue the legal battle of wills. For former mine worker Steve Garland, it was an emotional day.
Well, by keeping all the guys and the families together, it's kept that collectedness there, and I think because we have stayed together, that's what's won at the end of the day.
Even though the war is over and this monument to the workers' campaign is about to be removed, debate over the unfair dismissal laws lingers on. While Workplace Relations Minister Tony Abbott believes it was fair the matter was settled in court, unions believe workers were let down by the system.
In the past, we were able to get people who'd been dismissed at least 4 or 5 days hearings and then a result, and yet this period was 3.5 years and still not got a result in the boss's court.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Stony Creek might seem a long way from an international awards ceremony in Sweden, and even for the 3 Toronto High students, the distance their project will take them is still hard to believe.
It was something that we definitely didn't have in our books from starting the project, and to win it was beyond my belief, personally.
But for Tony Owen, David Carroll and team leader Chris McLean, the countless hours they've given to working on the creek's banks since last September have paid off. And for the environment too. Unwelcome residents like lantana have been removed and native plants added to revegetate the area and combat erosion, in yet another Lake Macquarie catchment feeling the effects of European settlement.
Numerous things have caused these problems we're looking at the moment, and it'll take time to fix them.
In fact, the project itself won't wrap up until this time next year, with the proceeds of the group's win in the national round of the Young Environmentalists Award already going towards its completion. Eventually, around 800 metres of shoreline will be rehabilitated, pretty satisfying when you're joined up to stay off your toes.
PE, they were doing a dancing unit, and Chris came up and said, "I've got to do some work down here, you want to help me?" Yes.
The international final will be held in September. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. Australia's female ice hockey program only started 2 years ago, but already it's yielded some impressive results. After finishing 7th in their division at their first World Championships, the girls followed up with a 3rd and are now the top seeds going into the 2003 titles in Slovenia.
But it's a lot of expectation, but it gives us a good goal to aim for.
First, players have to make the 20-strong squad at this week's training camp in Warners Bay near Newcastle, with the side's initial test a 3-match series against New Zealand starting Friday. While the Kiwis are yet to find the net against the Australians, coach Kathy Berg isn't writing them off.
They probably sat back after December and looked at their areas that required development, and I'm sure their coaches have been working on it.
For the home team, it's also a matter of trans-Tasman pride.
We all watched the rugby on Saturday night, and we're going to show the men how it's done and get back on top of New Zealand.
The first game begins at 5 p.m. at the Hunter Ice Skating Stadium with 2 further tests on Saturday afternoon and Sunday night. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. Kurt Gidley always seems to have big shoes to fill when he's called into the Knights side, and this week it's no different. Named at fullback for the injured Robbie O'Davis, he's fortunately been getting tips from the man himself.
But he gives me a lot of hand at training and that. He helps me out a fair bit, so it's good to have senior blokes there to always give you a hand after training.
While the return of Josh Perry and Danny Badiris will provide some much-needed experience up front, at the back it's a different story with Mark Hughes still no certainty to play due to an ankle injury and Neil Sweeney to make his first-grade debut on the wing.
This is his second year at the club and has been rock solid in First Division for that time and has played and worked very hard in the last few weeks. So.
The club won't train until Thursday to give its rep players as much of a break as possible after a hectic few weeks of football. While Michael Hagan's at least thankful they're not hosting the Bulldogs or Brisbane on Sunday, he knows Penrith still won't be easy.
They've got the capability of playing some good footy at times, so we just need to get back to our own routine and focusing and preparing for what they turn up on Sunday.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
The late Philip Emlyn Thomas always wanted to be a doctor, but because of financial reasons was forced to rethink his career options. Today, his wife Jenny proudly announced that a perpetual postgraduate scholarship be established in cardiovascular research.
I know that research is the only way that we're going to solve the problems. And we have to support our doctors here, we have to support this wonderful hospital, our great university.
The scholarship, which is a substantial 6-figure sum, will further research into heart and lung disease, one of the country's biggest killers.
Supporting such students is really the lifeblood of research in every medical research institute.
Mrs Thomas hopes others will also be encouraged to donate to the HMRI and, like her husband, inspire others to reach new horizons.
His great achievement in life was in encouraging, motivating and mentoring other young people.
It was a public show of dissatisfaction. Owner-drivers initially had pulled their vehicles off the road indefinitely and blockaded the main logistics Sandgate depot. The contractor's angry the company wants Pantech truck operators to accept $18 an hour in what drivers claim would be the fourth change to their pay arrangements in just 7 months. Transport Workers Union official Mark Crosdale says the offer would affect livelihoods and public safety.
And we're saying that they can't make money, that puts their safety at risk, puts their vehicle maintenance at risk, and at the end of the day, it puts the public at risk.
Parcel deliveries to Port Stephens, the Upper Hunter and Newcastle were disrupted. Bank and medical deliveries, however, were exempt from the strike. Late this morning, 8 hours into the stoppage, the drivers agreed to resume work as a goodwill gesture ahead of an industrial court hearing on Monday.
We'll be saying to the Commission that there needs to be some common sense into this debate because it's an issue for the whole community.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The move from Wallsend to the grounds of the Belmont Hospital means clients will now be treated in modern purpose-built facilities, and comfortable surroundings can make all the difference, according to Belinda Moss, who successfully overcame a 5-year battle with heroin.
I think it's very important having comfortable surroundings. It encourages people to stay here a bit longer.
The non-medical detoxification unit provides counselling and support and helps manage withdrawal symptoms.
I know we tend to focus on the drugs, but still alcohol overconsumption and addiction is still our biggest problem.
A community detoxification service will be run from the same site, where people with a substance abuse can receive treatment in the privacy of their own home.
And we're just expanding to the Lower Hunter sector, probably within the next 6 weeks. And we're also looking at expanding to the Upper Hunter sector, probably later on in the year.
A 24-hour advice service will also be operated from Belmont. The number to ring is 4923 2060. Meanwhile, Belinda, who now works for the Lake Macquarie Community Drug Action Team, offers this advice for those still struggling with their addiction.
It is hard, but it is worth it when you get there. There is nothing better than having a high on life.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Normally, a tree affecting underground utility cables would have its roots clipped, eliminating the problem. But cutting the roots of this particular fig could have brought it crashing down on a busy intersection. So at the weekend, it was removed. The operation took 8 hours, involving chainsaws, a heavy crane and plenty of manpower. But eventually it was done, drawing a mixed reaction from passers-by.
It is a tragedy, but you know, which way do you go? If they just cut the roots, the tree might have fallen over on someone anyway, so.
We'll miss it. We stand on this corner now, it looks very bare.
Council's tree man admits it was a sad day.
I think they are an emotional issue to everybody. Me too, actually, surprisingly enough. People think I'm a bit cold-hearted about this, but no, I don't enjoy felling trees at all. But I'm more than happy if I live in an area where I'm convinced that my local management authority is managing the trees effectively through their life, takes them down at the right time of their life, not right at the end, before, just moments before they collapse.
Phil is doing a risk assessment of 53,000 street trees in Newcastle and thousands more park trees, and says many more will have to go. But he says this fig didn't die in vain.
we're going to excavate around this tree. We're going to find out where its roots are and what they look like, and that'll give us a picture that we can now extrapolate across to some of these other trees. We've never known it before, and so we've always been a bit possibly always had to err on the side of caution. If we knew more about their roots and where they were and what held them up, we might be able to make some more effective decisions.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. The establishment this year of Callaghan College promised new horizons for education. The biggest investment in the change is about to be made at the Jesmond Senior Campus. Principal Ian Neighbour says the impending upgrade will allow students from the college's Wallsend and Waratah campuses to enhance their education when they reach senior school.
Waratah with technology and Wallsend with the fine arts, and the senior campus is going to have to facilitate those students and those very talented students coming in both of those areas.
Administration buildings and classrooms dating back to the 1950s make way for new premises, while younger buildings constructed in the 1970s are in for a facelift. It's being viewed as a wise investment.
Frankly, the success even already of the college concept in retaining students in the public high school system has been so good that we really do need to have that investment in new facilities and upgraded facilities.
The development application for the work is now before Newcastle Council, with work expected to begin late this year. Gary Blair, NBN News.